This week, we mourn the passing of Yehuda Bauer, a man who profoundly shaped our understanding of the Holocaust, of the Shoah. Though I never had the privilege of meeting him personally, although I found out last night that Corinne Promislo, our ritual committee chair, member of our executive committee, a year ago or 2 years ago, was part of a Toronto District School Board Holocaust education program at Yad Vashem, and Professor Bauer was one of the speakers. He was like 90 years old at that time and still very much involved in Holocaust education. I never got to meet him, but I remember vividly the first time I read his book, A History of the Holocaust. It was published in 1982. I began university in 1985, so sometime maybe 86, 87 is when I encountered his book, taking a class on exactly the title of this book, A History of the Holocaust. And what I found was that this wasn't just another history book. It was a gateway. Bauer's meticulous research, his unflinching commitment to truth, his ability to capture the moral gravity of that horrific chapter in human history opened my eyes. It was through his words that I was inspired to become a lifelong learner of the Shoah. His scholarship drew me in, not only to study the events that led up to the Holocaust, but to understand its profound impact on the Jewish world, on the world, even beyond the Jewish people. Bauer's work makes it clear that history wasn't something distant, that it was something that could still teach us how to act, how to live, and how to respond to injustice in our own day. Bauer's life was dedicated to understanding this, the darkest chapter of human history, not for the sake of history alone, but for the lessons that it could teach and hold for humanity's future. He was born in Prague in 1926, grew up in Europe, darkened by the rise of Nazism, and later moved to what would become the State of Israel. His work at Yad Vashem and his writings shape how all of us understand the Holocaust, not just as a historical event, but as a moral breaking point. I'd like to share a story from his life that I think captures his character and part of the profound lesson that he leaves us. It was late 1940s, shortly before he had emigrated to the fledgling State of Israel. One day he's walking through the streets of Jerusalem, and he comes across a small gathering of Holocaust survivors. These people, like him, had escaped the inferno of Europe, but these survivors were different. They were quiet, lost, as if the weight of their experiences had erased their ability to speak. Bauer approached them, introduced himself, and listened. Many had been left with no words to describe what they had lived through. It was then that Bauer made a decision. He would dedicate his life to giving voice to the voiceless, to ensuring that the silence of the survivors would never become the silence of history. In the opening verses of this morning's Torah reading, Bereshit, the Torah describes the world in the beginning as V'choshech al pnei tahom, a darkness was over the face of the deep. It was a world of chaos and void, much like the moral and emotional chaos that Bauer encountered when he first listened to those survivors, and that many of us continue to feel today in light of the Israel-Hamas war and the rising anti-Semitism in our own time. But then something extraordinary happens in the Torah. God speaks, Vayihi Or, and there was light, and creation begins. Light pierces the darkness, bringing with it order, hope, and possibility. And in many ways, Bauer's scholarship has been part of that light, a beacon of moral clarity, helping generations of learners to navigate the complexities of history and the moral responsibilities we bear. As we continue through Bereshit, we see that creation is not just God's domain. Humanity, too, is brought into the story, tasked with making choices that have profound consequences. Yehuda Bauer often spoke of history in this way as something that we must engage with, something we have a responsibility to shape. For him, the Holocaust was not a tragic accident or some predetermined fate. It was the result of human choices. He reminds us over and over of a new mitzvah: thou shalt not be a bystander. Take for the story of Adam and Eve. God places them in the Garden of Eden, giving them everything they need with one exception. U'me'etz hadat tov v'ra lo tochel mimenu. From the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you should not eat from it. The command is clear, yet Adam and Eve, like all of us, faced temptation, and they made a choice that brought about profound consequences. Yehuda Bauer, reflecting on human history, emphasized that it's these moments of choice that shape our world. His life work was to study how people, whether out of hatred, indifference, or fear, allowed one of the greatest atrocities in history to happen. Bauer's challenge to us is that we learn from those choices, that we recognize the moments in which we can make a difference, and as the Torah commands, lo ta'amod al dam re'echa, do not be a bystander by the blood of your neighbor. Rashi, the great medieval commentator, offers a powerful insight into this theme of responsibility in Bereshit. He notes that when God says, Na'aseh Adam b'talmenu, we shall create human beings in our image, Na'aseh is in the plural. And he asks, why is it that God uses the plural? His explanation is that God is modeling humility by consulting with the angels. But there is a deeper message here, and that message is that we human beings are partners in creation. We're endowed with the power to make choices for better or for worse. Yehuda Bauer, too, he saw humanity as having the capacity and the obligation to shape history. He often said if there is one lesson to be learned from the Holocaust, it is that we human beings are responsible for what happens in the world. No one can claim innocence by standing on the sidelines. This echoes the Torah's call to take responsibility for our actions, for the world around us, and for each other. This theme of responsibility is perhaps most powerfully present in Bereshit through the story of Cain and Abel. After Cain kills his brother, God asks him, "Ei Hevel avicha, where is Hevel, where is Abel, your brother?" And Cain responds with a haunting question of his own. Hashomer achi anochi, am I my brother's keeper? Yehuda Bauer's life was an answer to this question. Yes, you are your brother's keeper. We all are. His scholarship calls on us to stand up for others, to recognize that indifference itself is a choice, and a dangerous one. In this, Bauer echoes the Torah's insistence that we are all responsible for each other. We are Hashomer Achicha. Bereshit teaches us that while God began the work of creation, it is humanity's job to continue it. After God rests on the seventh day, on Shabbat, the work is not complete. The world is still in a state of becoming, and it is up to us to build, to shape, and to repair. Yehuda Bauer's work echoes this theme. He spent his life not only researching the past, but advocating for a future where humanity learns from its mistakes. His famous words, "Thou shalt not be a victim, thou shalt not be a perpetrator, above all, thou shalt not be a bystander," serves as a call to action, reminding us that creation is ongoing and that we have a role in ensuring it is one of justice and compassion. As we begin this new cycle of Torah readings with Bereshit, we find ourselves again on the threshold of creation. The world is once again fresh and full of potential. Yet Bereshit reminds us that with creation comes responsibility. God has given us the tools to shape the world, but it's up to us to choose how we will use them. Yehuda Bauer, whose life we honor today, was a man who dedicated himself to reminding us of this responsibility. His work calls on us to remember the past, to act in the present, and to build a future where human dignity is upheld and protected. May his memory always be for a blessing. Amen.